I am telling you, it is the definition between an entrepreneur and an employee. The employee goes to the cliff, looks over the cliff, says, is there a balloon down there? Do I be safe? What happens if it hurts? What if I land on my neck? The entrepreneur, they said, when you jump off the cliff, backs up 10 feet to get a fucking run.
This town needs an enema.
Fuck.
Who are you? Where's Commissioner Brady?
Come on. You guys take beat me.
Too stupid!
You don't really think you can leave? Things change.
You got me? Who's got you?
Everything changed. And anyone who tells you different is just lying.
You know who this is? This is Mark motherfucking Sylvester.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Thursday night. Here we are. I'm feeling good. A lot better than I was, I'll say that. Although I do have some heartburn going on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. Doing great. Very excited for tonight.
I'm very excited tonight. Nothing to complain about. Nothing to complain about. I do have to say, though, everybody out there, Batman 159 came out. I read it. Sean still have to read it. We're going to do a stream sometime next week because we already have a guest book for next ARAKNIS stuff. But we're going to do another stream. We're going to go over that because we told you guys we would do a review every time it came out. And we'll see if this one's a little bit more positive than the last one. But we'll get into it. All right. Let's just jump into the show. I'm going to say hi to the chat real quick, and we're going to get rolling here so we don't have our guests wait too long. Mark Penguin was number one in the chat and number one in our hearts. Great to see you, brother. That means you are...
You're number one.
Yes, sir. You are number one, my friend. We also have John Epple.
What's going on?
Hail the chat. What's going on, brother? Good to see you. We have Duck Bacon. Yes. Hail Joe, Sean, Michael. Hail the chat. Hail to you, my friends. Mm-hmm. Hail to you. Hail the Lord's in the house. Hail.
How you doing?
Good to see you, my friend. Member of the channel,
yes.
Keith Ward, Cosmic Studios, is in the house. You know what we do for our members here?
Oh my God! I'm sorry! I can't stop coming! I'm sorry! Oh, it feels so good!
Feels great.
It feels so good for the members in the chat tonight. I also have Christopher Scott in the house.
What's up, brother?
What's up, my friend? So what's up, Joe and Sean? What is up with you? Great to have you guys in the chat. Do us a favor. Wherever you might be watching, please hit the like button. Share this out. Let people know that we're live. Come over to the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Help us out. Comment on the show as much as you can. Whether it's live, whether it's afterwards. We put out shorts. We put out segments of the show. Interact with us on YouTube. It helps the algorithm. Helps the channel grow as well. So, all right.
More importantly, drop the link into other people's chats.
Ooh, yeah.
Facebook posts, pictures of their family members. You know, they're looking at great grandma Petunia.
That too.
Live, you know?
That too. Yeah. If anybody gets upset, if you're a moderator, just let them know it's cool. They can come talk to us. It's
We're
fine.
good with it, so they gotta be cool.
That's right. All right, let's jump into this. Sean.
Yes, brother.
It's Thursday night.
It is.
I'm feeling good. Welcome to
Art and Stuff, your favorite podcaster's favorite show about comics and art and stuff. 25 years and a half in the business on a technicality, over 40 years consuming and collecting the comic book medium in many formats. Like Norman, my skills are the baits. I might be a little dysfunctional, but I'm functional.
recklessly charismatic, and killing it since B-boy days and belt buckles. Gifted narcissistic with a dedicated personality, the Hispanic god on paper. Creator type 1, the only one, except no duplicates. Cooler than the gang Jersey's finest, Sean Ahrent. With me as always, my brother Not.
Very talented, very sexy, very distinguished. Always narcissistic, but never vain. Staunch defender of Rob Liefeld, Gina Crown, and a lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M Sonntag if you prefer, as the Pope likes to call me, R.I.P. JMS. Also, the chat loves to call me Ronan Joe. Welcome to the show, and as always, what an awesome show we have for you tonight. Because, damn it, who are we talking to tonight, man?
We got somebody that we wanted to talk to for years. Somebody who's been as monumental to as us for creators, comic book fans from teenagers to now. Excellent. That the question's like, where they been? But now he's back. Co-creator of the hot indie property ARAKNIS, Mr. Michael ORTIZ.
Let's bring him on. Michael, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor.
Absolutely. An absolute honor. Absolutely. We were talking a little bit before we went live. In chat, you guys know this. If you follow a show, we have a show, one of our shows on this channel called Appreciating Comic Book Art Live. Now, why that's significant is, I want to say, it was last year, right?
A little, yeah.
I think it was last year, yeah. We want to look at books in the 90s that people hadn't, maybe not enough light had been shed on it, right? Stuff that we loved growing up, and we're like, people need to know this. So we popped up ARAKNIS. That was one of the first ones we looked at, because this is one of the books in the 90s that it looked amazing on the shelf. The art was awesome. It should have been up there with like the Image books. It should have been published by Image. I want to jump into that a little bit because there's a story. If you guys dealing with Savage Dragon, I want to ask Michael about when it comes to an art contest and why that never went anywhere. But this was a book that we absolutely loved, and we dove into it. The chat loved it. We looked at all 4 issues of the first miniseries, and I was like, if we ever got a chance to talk to this dude, this would be awesome. I never thought we would, and here we are sitting with Michael ORTIZ talking about ARAKNIS. So I just wanted to give that intro about just how important this show is to us, and the chat knows that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. I think it just all started with being on a journey, right? Like, especially an artistic one. So like you, when I was a kid, I was drawing all the time, just drawing things that I liked. And at the time I was really into fantasy and reading fantasy and novels. Like, I read everything, whatever I can get my hands on, from Conan to Elric. And, just I love the whole fantasy genre and science fiction, of course. And then I found Frank Frazetta in the midst of all of that, and he was quite inspiring. And so growing up, I'm an Air Force brat, so we moved around a lot.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
I was always the new kid in school, all the time, every year, sometimes 3 times a year. And so, drawing helped me connect with other people. They liked my work, and we could talk about it and become friends even. Some of the best friends I ever met were just because they noticed me drawing. And, so I just enjoyed doing it, and I didn't realize that I was any good at it. It was just something that I like to do, and people and warriors and stuff like that were the thing I was interested in doing, and dragons and such. And and my father, even though he was career military, was also an artist. And
oh, nice.
He had planned on being an artist growing up in high school, and didn't really expect to like make a career out of the military. But by the time I was old enough to realize, I had 3 sisters and a brother. So
Right.
My dad had quite a family, and because of that, he never didn't have the confidence to pursue an art career. So he just made the military his career.
Did he originally want to get into comic books, or was a different art medium that he was looking to do?
Different art medium, yeah.
Okay.
Comic books wasn't even an idea, not even in my mind. I didn't even consider drawing comics. I was in the Army when I saw Rob Liefeld on that commercial.
Oh, nice.
Okay,
The jeans one.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? Comic books, and the stuff that I saw him doing looked dynamic and great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'd like to do that. I wonder if I could do that. So, but I'm in the military. The thing is, this time I'm in the Army, and this was, I joined in '89, and I was like 21 at the time, and I also got married to my high school sweetheart, and so I joined the Army, knowing all my life I had planned on being an artist, regardless. I knew it from since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
When they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, an artist. And, and it was always just matter of fact, even though I didn't know what kind of artist, I never considered that. But I like doing it. And, when I got into high school, I was never a good student because I moved around a lot. And so I was never really able to have enough credits to take an elective, and art was an elective, so I couldn't take art classes.
Oh, gotcha.
Anytime while I was in high school, though, but in my senior year, I finally got a chance to get into an art class. I had an elective open, and I was going to be able to graduate. And but I had developed a reputation at that time as being pretty good at what I did. So they just went ahead and put me in an advanced art class.
Nice.
And which was, it was really cool. I didn't know what it meant, except that I didn't have to go through the basics, I guess. But
right.
But my art teacher, her name was Mrs. Schnur, really nice lady. And it was just about introducing me to mediums, I guess. And she introduced me to pastels and oils and doing different types of mediums. And I loved them. And I was able to adapt to it almost immediately, to whatever medium I was using. And including sculpture and clay. And that was the first time I ever sculpted anything. And the first thing I attempted was a centaur, which was a half man and half horse.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
I just went for it because, I tried to problem solve and figure out how to do it. And so the first one didn't come out as good as I liked. But she was impressed. She said that she had been teaching art for like 19 years and has never had a student that was as talented as I was. Right?
That's awesome.
Which is not saying much because, a lot of kids didn't do art. They just, it turned out back then there wasn't a lot of us, I guess. And it was few and far between to find other artists. Even in all the schools that I went to, I was always looking for the other artist type, the other, and challenge them to an art contest, just to see who was any good at what they did. And,
I don't know if I ever did that when I was younger. Of course, I didn't really know too many other people that drew when I was a kid either. It was kind of like a niche thing for me,
Yeah. Well, it was because I was on this journey and I was always asking questions and I always wanted to know. I wanted to be good at what I was doing. And I've always tried to just, and even to this day, I mean, I'm 57 years old now and I'm still like trying to figure out how to do this, try to, learning all the time. Every single time I put my pencil to the paper, it just becomes school.
Well, it's kind of like what I love about art. Oops, sorry, that was weird. What I love about art is you can always learn, right? Just style. You can always mess with your style. You can always add new techniques. You see what other people are doing. It inspires you. You should always be getting better, right? As a comment, like that's something Sean and I always try to keep in mind. Is we're always trying to get better, no matter how old you are. We look at some of our favorite artists, like Mark Silvestri is one of my favorite artists, right? He's always improving, always getting better, always doing new stuff. And that's what's inspiring about art because you never hit that ceiling. You really don't.
And you shouldn't think you do. I think when you think you've gotten there, you should throw in the towel, or just
right.
Yeah. Or like that Korean artist Jim Gee or
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who passed
Yeah.
away a few years ago?
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that dude was.
well,
Oh
he
man.
was. I don't think you get any better than that.
Yeah,
Right.
he was pretty darn like right. He was pretty darn up there. I mean, some
Yeah.
mind blowing
Well,
talent with that dude.
just in the ability to just off the top of your head and
Yeah.
just go that
Yeah.
only in that aspect. You
Mhm.
know, as far as like I didn't like the way he drew Batman. I mean, I just couldn't get over it. he made an attempt to draw Batman, and I was like, that was terrible. That was terrible.
Yeah, it's like like style wise, but like you said,
Yeah.
like his ability just to
Yeah.
draw, because a lot of
Yeah.
us artists, we use underdrawings and all that kind of stuff to build the art up as you go until it's a finished product. And to watch guys like him who could just take a blank canvas and just draw without underdrawing and just make it this beautiful piece of art, regardless if you like the style or not, that stuff is just, it's insane. Yeah, Kim Jong-gi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, he was inspiring, and I loved comics, but I mean, I drew all the time, but there's a difference between drawing and sketching or drawing and art than there is in comics, because now you got to make sure you got these clean, crisp lines and that translates for somebody to come in and ink it. And, and that's where my problem has always been, because, growing up, I'm drawing Conan, but, I'm sketching in the shadows and shading it and put my fingers smudging it. You can't do that with comics, when you're trying to be a penciler. And so I had to figure out how to just just slow down, I guess, and just, put my line work in. And my brother, I got him into it pretty much when I was just starting out too. So, and he wasn't, he didn't grow up, I didn't know he was an artist. He didn't know that he could draw. He
Nice.
Yeah, we were both in the military, and we both served overseas in Desert Storm.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And, yeah, he was in a different unit. I was in a military police unit, an airborne unit out of Fort Bragg, and he was in a cavalry unit.
Oh, wow.
Air cab. And but while he was out there in the desert, he grabbed a sketchbook and just started drawing. So when he came back, he showed me his work, and turned out that he had been hiding his talent, or it was always there, but he didn't know, because he was really good. It was really good work. And so around that time, when we were both about to get out, I told him I was going to pursue comics and try to, work in that field. And I started drawing characters. Mark Silvestri was one of my favorite, and Cyber Force had just come out. So
I can see
Red
that.
Claw all the time.
Yeah.
And I love Red Claw. I thought he was a badass character, and and most of them images characters I thought were really badass. I was
That's
really
facts.
deeply inspired by them when I was trying to get into it.
And you could tell. We could definitely tell. And I was going to ask if Silvestri and Lee were one of your big influences, because when we looked at the ARAKNIS books, I could kind of see where that kind of like 90s Silvestri was in that style, just some of the rendering and everything.
Well,
was awesome.
The thing that appealed to me most about their style was, coming from, like, I don't know, it's an art style, but it's an ancient art form of inking. And when you ink, you use a lot of cross hatching. And the old school artists were badass at it. So here's some comic book artists that were doing the cross hatching techniques, and they did it like, whoa, what the fuck? I never seen it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Same here. Yeah.
So that was like, wow, I want to do like that, because that seemed like that was going to be the direction that comics was going to go as far as being an inking medium. And and I probably could have tried inking my own work or just becoming an inker, but I was so overwhelmed by the process of just trying to get the pencil straight that I didn't have the confidence to do inking. So I gave that job to my brother. I said, let's get into it together. You do the inking, I'll do the penciling, and we'll just do it together. and you know, and he was always, my brother and I have always been close. He's always been very supportive of me, and you know, when we get to collaborating, we come with some good ideas. But so in the meantime, I was apprenticed as an airbrush artist when I was in high school, and so I was airbrushing. I learned to airbrush, and I love airbrushing. I love the medium of that also. So after we got out of the military, we opened up an airbrush shop inside of a comic book store.
Oh, nice.
Inside of a plaza. Yeah, and at the time they had the theaters that were $1 to go into.
Yeah.
The dollar
Yeah.
and an arcade. So it was a really good area. We were booming. I had this, we called our company Hired Guns Custom Airbrush Shop.
Nice.
And we did T-shirts, right? And
Yeah.
and my friend owned that comic book store, and all, you know, so I was surrounded by all of this. Wow, look at these great artists. I mean, they were just everywhere. So good. And you know, so I started creating characters, and I had this one ninja warrior dude that I was gonna call Shadow Dragon, and he was like a part of an assassin's team, and he was on the hunt for this bad guy character that I just wanted to be a massive muscle-bound brute kind of dude who was going around killing people, you know.
Yeah.
And so I kept trying to draw this scene where this guy jumps off of a shed onto the hero, and my hero turns around to engage him, and I wanted to capture the scene where he's flying over the top of him, ready to come down. And it, no matter how hard I drew it or how many times I drew it, I just couldn't get that intimidating feel to it, right? And so I thought, you know, what the fuck could I do? And then I got this vision of spider legs coming out of his back. And I thought, well, maybe that'll look scary, you know, because it reminded me of this movie I saw when I was a kid called Invasion of the Giant Spiders.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Or the Giant Spider Invasion, something like that. But the giant spiders came out of the ground and all of this shit. And this lady runs into a barn to hide, but on this loft was this spider, and it leaps on top of her, and that scared the shit out of me. So
Nice.
I thought maybe I could try to get that with this look, and it looked cool, but then there had to be rhyme and reason, and so I started working with this character that had legs that came out of his back, and he went through a few iterations. I was gonna actually call him Trapdoor at first.
Oh yeah,
that was the only spider name that that is out there that actually has a cool name, you know, or
right.
a weird name like Trapdoor.
Yeah.
All the other spiders sound stupid, you know. Black Widow's a cool name.
Right. But that was already taken, so
yeah. You know, so spiders aren't really, you know, like the way they're named is not really conducive to a comic book character.
Right.
So so I toyed around with them, and you know, and of course it's Arachnid is a spider, and then there's Arachne, that was a Greek goddess. So I thought ARAKNIS, you know, like he is a spider, so let's put the is at the end, and then it didn't roll off the tongue that easy for me at first, but I talked to my brother about it, and Mario's like, "That's the one, that's the name."
I was just gonna say that's funny because the name is so badass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you hear it, like to me, it just sounds like right off the bat, you're like Arachnus. Like, oh man, and especially when you see the visuals of the character, you know, and naming is so like branding or whatever. It's so important with comics, especially in the 90s, right? You like, especially when you had like the image boom that you were coming up in and putting the book out, like the name just hit, and the design was awesome. You know, and this was before like Spider-Man had his friggin' iron spider suit, right, with the extra legs.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like this was something that was new with the character design, and it was like a spider-like character with these, you know, bionic legs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's something kind of fishy about that character.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's just coincidental.
Spread rumors.
Because you know, Stan Lee had kind of a reputation for just, you know, like coming up to artists. I'm like, I got a name, design a character for this name, or you know, I got this idea. You know, can you do this, and then we'll give it a name. And so at that San Diego con in '95, ARAKNIS, because of Eric Larson, I have to give him credit for that contest, which I'll explain again.
Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely want to jump into that for sure. Yeah.
But it's just a little tidbit. I mean, we met Stan Lee at that Comic-Con, and he had a booth right next to ours. And I think at the time he might have been like promoting Magic the Gathering cards, right? I think it was Magic the Gathering. I'm not sure, but he was right next to us, and we had this booth, and ARAKNIS is going crazy there. There were people lined up all the way around
awesome.
the whole section there, and it was just a lot of fun. But Stan is looking at the first issue of ARAKNIS, and he is just going on and on about how great this character is, how cool he looks, and the style. And I mean, yeah, it was like, you really did it. You got something here. You really did a good job on this. I really like this with the metal legs. It comes that, man, son, you really did a good job on this, right? And he kept,
wow.
And I was like, wow, thank you. You know, I appreciate it. And so, you know, and my team, and you know, they were offered him. They said, here, you can have an issue and sign it. And so he took an issue with them. And then, yeah, not long after that, Marvel comes out with their new character called the Steel Spider, and there's spider legs coming out of his back.
Interesting.
And I'm like, you know, I mean, me and my crew, we laughed about it. I was never offended. If that were the case and I influenced it, you know, it's more flattering than anything.
I was going to say it could be flattering. Yeah, you know, I mean, it depends on how you want to look at it, because without any actual proof or whatever, you know. But
my lawyer would say otherwise.
Exactly.
That's fishy.
Yeah, you know?
It's fishy.
Yeah. No suspect.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But you know, but it doesn't even end there with the Iron Spider and the invention of the Iron Spider, because that was the Steel Spider. That wasn't the Iron Spider. The Iron Spider was designed and created, you know, by Marvel, and it came out in the movies when I first noticed it. And I have a lot of like fans of ARAKNIS that come from Brazil too, because when ARAKNIS was out during that time, it sold #1 in that country.
Oh, nice.
And they're diehard. Yeah, they're really good. They're good guys, a bunch of them. And after the movie The Avengers came out, all of a sudden I get a bunch of mail from these guys, and they're all like, are you going to sue Marvel for stealing your idea and this and that? You know, because they got the metal legs from ARAKNIS. I was like, nah, that's crazy. That's funny though, but
right.
You know, because it just doesn't take much to, if you want to do something to enhance a spider character, of course it would, you know, it's only put 2 and 2 together when you're going to add legs to them. You know?
Right.
So yeah, you know, I thought it was cool. And when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, so that's how you do it, because I want to see what it would look like.
Right.
Oh.
Right. For a live action version of ARAKNIS.
Yeah.
I try to like put my mind to see it, but it wasn't until I saw Spider-Man that I'm like, oh, it can be done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially with the like the CGI and technology, they can absolutely.
And not only did they do it, they did it really well. So
yeah,
that's it. But it does. There is a connection though, because it turns out the guy who actually designed the Iron Spider suit was Joe Quesada.
Right.
Oh, that's right. I actually forgot about that.
Yeah. Yep. And Joe Quesada was my mentor at the time when we were doing ARAKNIS.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you knew Joe then, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Do you think he took any inspiration from ARAKNIS when designing that? Did he ever say anything?
Well, there hasn't been another comic book character before ARAKNIS, or, you know, since ARAKNIS, that had metal spider legs that came out of his back.
Right. Yeah. It was a completely unique look, or a design, in my opinion. It's one of the reasons why it stands out so much. Even as a kid, when you saw the book on the shelf in the LCS, you look at that character, you're like, wow, like like that, and like the purple and the dark purple and the kind of pink color offset by the metal, the steel, just in the dreads. Like everything about the design, the colors. I mean, you guys knocked it out of the park.
He was a hair metal character.
When
I was thinking of him. I was thinking of Kiss and Motley Crue and
had attitude, right? And that's why you're designing it after some characters or some the attitude era of the 80s 90s. Like that's
very
cool.
flamboyant. You would see Paul Stanley wearing an outfit like Arraknis,
right?
Or Ace Frehley and Peter Criss put together.
What was the idea?
It was all a Kiss, right?
What was the idea behind the color scheme? Because it's funny because like if you create characters, guys, anybody's watching this live, creators in the chat, you guys know this. When you're creating a character, one of the biggest hurdles to jump over is like, you got a great design and everything, and you're like, what color should this character be? You can go through all these different iterations.
I'll tell you what it was. And I remember clearly the color scheme for Arraknis. I was inspired. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this movie called Race.
Yes.
It's about this car.
Oh.
Yeah.
Charlie, you saw how it glimmered in the darkness and it had that purplish tint to it.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I wanted that when I saw Arraknis.
I'm gonna watch that tonight. That's dope.
No, that's awesome. I love that. I love how the inspiration of like where that kind of stuff just hits your brain, out of nowhere.
Well, you can see where I actually failed in that attempt because it didn't look anything like the Race, but
I wouldn't say you failed. I think you took the speckles of it and made it your own. And
later on, I used more blacks and Arraknis and then it was purple where the highlights were purple.
Yeah, which like that's the cool thing of the 90s. And sometimes I wish they would do more of that now in modern comic books, but kind of something that started with like Todd McFarlane with Spider-Man, turning the blue more dark, and then just the highlights is the blue in the Spider-Man costume. But there was something like badass visually about that kind of style in the 90s. So like, you knew the character was purple, but even though it carried the heavy black tones or whatever, it's just visually. It's one thing about the era of the 90s comics that I just absolutely love to this day, and why we do shows like this and why we look at old comic book art is just like you were saying about the inking and the cross hatching and just everything that was about that visual artistic style of the 90s. To me is untouchable to this day, even though we're in 2025. Before we get too far though, I did want to jump and double back into that Savage Dragon 10. There was an art contest. Eric Larson put out there create a character, and if you won the contest, he puts it in the book. And it fights the Savage Dragon and all this stuff. And we all know that Jimbo the Giant Lobster won the contest. And if you ever read that book, it's it's an okay book, nothing bad about it. But if you jump into the letters pages, Eric prints a bunch of honorable mentions or whatever. And right smack dab in the middle here is Arraknis. And I remember seeing this as a kid. And the first thing I thought was like, why the hell didn't this win?
Yeah,
like it's just the coolest looking thing. And it would look so awesome. Drawn by Eric Larson in the Savage Dragon. So what's the story behind this?
And did you color that, or did your brother color that?
No, I had literally stopped at the time they had comic books inside of convenience stores at the time, because this was like in '93, I think, or '94, and I had drawn this picture of Arraknis on an 11 by 17 size paper. I think it was 11 by 17. It could have been, and I drawn it, and I think I might have inked it myself, or my brother inked it, and then I let a friend of mine color it, and I just said make them purple and do that sign in this middle red. But he didn't use a lot of tones and variants. It was plain, but
yeah,
I liked it. It looked cool. But that was the first time we had put in color to that character.
Oh, nice.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, all right, so it's not too bad. It's working. And then I saw a ad somewhere about Eric Larson's contest, and I had that image in my hand, so I'm like, I'll try this, because I think Arachnus will make a good villain too. And but I didn't think much of it, I had that in my hand, and it was like, like perfect timing, I guess. And so I sent it in, and I didn't hear anything. And then I was at the bookstore in the mall looking through some magazines, and I saw the Savage Dragon, and I like the Savage Dragon. I always was a fan of Eric Larson's work, and I picked it up, and I went to the back, and then I saw Arachnid. I was like, oh shit,
Nice.
I was like, yeah, that's cool. There's some weirdo standing next to me, and I'm like, that's my character.
I love it. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And but I didn't hear nothing or find out anything about it after, and why Jimbo won instead, right? So,
yeah.
It just seemed to me kind of, that's what it was. It was just more along his line, right? The kind of character he likes.
Yeah.
So 95 comes to the San Diego Comic-Con, and of course Eric Larson's there, and and I go up to Eric Larson, I'm like, hey, I'm Mike ORTIZ, and this, I'm the creator of ARAKNIS. Look, I did this book. And then he looked at me and he goes, oh man, you're the one that caused me so much hell. Right? His fans really all went against him when he chose the lobster. He said that he got such hate mail. He got hate mail from all of his fans.
No
right?
shit.
They were all pissed off. Yeah,
that's
like,
funny.
why did you? And he was like, oh my God, and he tried to defend himself, but he told me, he goes, honestly, the only reason I didn't pick Arachnus is because I didn't know how to draw those legs. I didn't know what to do with them. Like, what do you do with those legs?
Yeah.
And he was absolutely right, because that was one of the problems that I had with Arachnus. When I did that first book, it's like, what the fuck do I do with these legs?
Right, and all the different angles and stuff.
If,
and
a spider, is he going to be a spider, or is he, and are his human body parts just going to dangle? I mean, it was really like I struggled because I wanted to be some rhyme and reason to it. There had to be a reason that there's this character, and ever since then, it was struggling to just create this character that had a rhyme and reason for its existence. And and because of that, that question and trying to find that out, it went through lots of different iterations, and of course I got, personally I was getting more and more frustrated because I lost the essence of Arachnus, trying to find him, trying to figure out who he is. And it's all on me. Nobody else gives a shit, really. Nobody else knows.
True. I was just going to say, yeah.
All of that is on me, on how I put him out there. And if I don't do it, my brother can't do it. The colorist can't do it. Nobody can do it if I stop at the get. And essentially, I think that's what happened. When I look back on it, I just, I couldn't see myself, like it got so like diluted with all of these ideas. My brother and I collaborating back and forth, and, so you got a little stretched out on one concept or another. And it bothered me to a point where I didn't have it in me to just keep it going. I stepped away from it. And
huge disappointment on our part. Like,
yeah, well, when Arachnus bottomed out after Mario and I, we separated from this company we were publishing with called Mystic Comics.
Yes,
and we were all, Mario and I were both all co-partners in this publishing company. And we left Mushroom Comics, which was the initial.
Right. Yes.
And,
yep.
And it had a lot to do with they were getting money from an investor that was putting a lot of money into Mushroom. And Mushroom had their own line of books, and the characters were badass, and
Mm-hmm.
and they were one of the very few independent comics at the time that were coloring their own books, that were doing digital colors, and that very much appealed to me with that aspect of doing digital colors, for Arachnis even, not
Yeah.
even black and white, and but I'm not sure exactly how it turned out and why it went south. Because right away, the mistake was made, and even maybe a little bit on my brother's part, because they thought it was a good idea that I shouldn't have to concern myself with the business of publishing. Just
Right.
be creative and concentrate on your art, and just don't worry about everything else. Everything else will be okay. But and that's I'm a rebellious kind of guy. I don't like going with the system that
I like it.
So I'm like, I want to know what's happening. I want to be more a part of it. I want to, I want to feel like that I know what train this is and where this train is going. And I guess I'm bullheaded about it, which I didn't know until after the fact, right? But
things you learn.
Yeah, so there was a lot of inner turmoil, and by the time we got to Mystic Comics, we hired a friend of ours, his father-in-law, to manage the finances and the business aspect. And then, the colors would do the coloring, and Mario and would do the inking, and the writing and the co-creating. I'm doing the artwork. And, and it was going good. I mean, there were times where things were going fantastic, and we were kicking ass and taking names, and we had a lot of fun at the Comic Cons and meeting people. I mean, it was always good times. But again, I'm having problems with the character itself and knowing where I'm going.
Okay.
And then that's not the noble part of me. That's just in my head, kind of like my endeavor.
Right.
But I'm also, I'm divorced at that time, so I'm single, and and I'm young, and there's women all over the place. I'm in Oceanside, California, with an apartment right on the beach.
Oh shit! There you go.
Can't blame you.
Doing Arachnis, right?
Can't blame you. I would have threw the pages away too. Some tail.
Oh man, yeah. So it was a lot of distractions, lots and lots. And I was just, it just started coming back with me. It's like this. There was like these women that were revolving and finding out about each other as they're going out. Finding out about it.
Some might brag, but not you.
Yeah, not you.
Well, it hurt my productions.
I could see that.
Yeah, and it also hurt the guys that I was working with. So Larry, who was the manager and stuff, didn't have a lot of faith in me. He knew I was talented, but I was unreliable because of my choices. Because of the womanizing and alcohol.
I mean, that's when you look at a lot of that era, right? Where the comic book artist kind of became the rock star, and it's like, yeah, the big names are out there doing their stuff. The image guys, as well, and a lot of artists that got some fame with their characters had that problem. As much as we love Dale Keown, he's the same way. Like, he got that success, and he was really big into music, and he wanted to pursue all these different things, and it hurt production. It was a lot of distractions, I guess, in the 90s.
His mastery and his work, though, he's badass. I love Dale.
Oh yeah, he's
phenomenal.
He's the GOAT.
He's one
yeah,
100%. I still try to pursue art. Arachnis it just sort of fell apart from the inside because of I had a lot of emotional baggage and kids. By the time I got out of the Army, I had 3 daughters with my wife and our stepson. Who had Down syndrome. And her and I were, she was my greatest love, I guess. because we battled. Went round and round. And, you know, and so essentially ARAKNIS came, it imploded from the inside. And that's when the money ran out, basically. We had, we finally won this investor that had been investing in the other publishing companies, but wanted to invest in ARAKNIS specifically.
Yeah.
And work with us directly because he wanted he owned a toy company and wanted to start producing action figures.
Wow.
And was hoping that ARAKNIS would be a license that he could use.
Yeah.
And you know, we're like, I'm down for it. That company is called Funline Toys, by the way.
Okay.
And yeah, shortly after that, they asked me to design some trucks for them to look like monsters. So, and I sculpted them. I didn't draw them out. I actually took one of their toy trucks and just sculpted it into a monster.
Oh, lost him for a second. Oh, he's back.
Sorry about it.
No, good.
But he, so I did, and he paid me, you know, he paid me like really good money for it. And then he had manufactured these toys, and they came out in Walmart. And they were the first. They were the first of the whole series of monster machines by Funline. The Monster Machine toys.
Mm-hmm.
They became real popular, like in the '90s. Monster Machine exploded, or the early 2000s. I mean.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Monster Machine. But anyway, so so that money ended, and so ARAKNIS stopped, and we had just started a new series, so we were able to get the one book out, but the orders weren't there. Nobody knew it existed. You know, they didn't know about us. We didn't advertise. It just sort of came out, and then the second one went to the print, and I never saw that book again because I walked away and went into like this, you know, 4 or 5 year period of just depression. You know,
oh man,
alcohol.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but you know, and then you know, and right around the time my ex-wife and I got back together, is what happened. Trying to raise our kids, but then you know, drugs got involved and partying a lot, and
I know how that goes.
yeah. But you know, I got to a point rather early, I guess, where I just chose my kids. You know, and I told my wife, I was like, "Yeah, we got to stop. That's enough." You know, that one last night really bad, so I was like, "Done." But she was like, "I don't want to. I'm not ready to quit. You know, I don't want to." You know, and then you know, one thing leads to another, and we're not together anymore. And then she abandons my kids and literally disappeared for a whole year. Just
good Lord.
Gone off the map. So now I got my kids ever since then. My oldest daughter, she's 34 now, but back then she was 10.
Yeah.
And so it's just me and my 3 daughters. I couldn't take my stepson with me because, you know, he wasn't mine.
Right.
And because he has Down syndrome, he has special needs. So it was just me and my 3 daughters, and you know, and that changed everything. And so I didn't want to continue not working as an artist during those 5 or 6 years. I don't know how long. It was a long time. I didn't even pick up a pencil to doodle, not even a doodle, like 0. But I got tired of I was working construction and you know, doing all kinds of like just jobs. I was working for a tower erection company with my dad and putting up, you know, the cellular phone towers all over Florida. And I was climbing them.
I was just going to say, you didn't have to climb those.
All the way
screw that.
500 feet in the air.
Hell no.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Good Lord.
Times. Yeah, I was working with guys that did the giant ones who were up in 15,000 or 1,500 feet in the air.
I wouldn't even do
2,000
30.
feet in the air. Yeah, no,
Oh, we
I
gotta
know.
serve ice cream.
Yeah, it's scary, but you know, I don't know. I kind of like all of that visceral in your, you know, like that's why joining the military and going airborne and try to go special forces was my goal, but I didn't make it. But yeah, so I did that, but I decided I was just gonna I wanted to give my kids a better life than that, and so I was in San Antonio at the time, and I decided to start airbrushing again.
Nice.
And I had a t-shirt shop for a while, and it was starting to go good. But then somebody wanted me to paint the trunk lid to their car, and so I did that. And now I mean I love airbrushing, and I gotten to be pretty good at it. And but doing t-shirts and paintings and stuff was a lot of fun. But you have to do mass volumes to make any good money.
Yeah.
But when I started painting on metal, it was like really good money right away. So after I did that, I just started doing that more often, and then it led to, like a 20-year career in airbrushing. I moved to Florida and started over there, and I was painting cars, motorcycles, dragsters, boats, jet skis. I mean, you name it, I painted it, and most of my paintings, or the most of the commissions I did, each of them are all award-winning projects. Like,
wow,
awesome.
Like there's one monster truck I did for this guy. Entered every contest he could. Ended up entering 100 contests and won best of show or first place at every single one.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an achievement. He was super happy.
I bet. Yeah, that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah,
that's some bragging points right there.
That's what I was doing for a while, and then again, women. So I got another daughter now. I actually have 2 more daughters after my third. I have another one from a girl in California who kept all the artwork that I ever did on ARAKNIS in the first place.
That's awesome.
No, it isn't. She set it on fire.
Oh, that's not awesome.
Who is this person? Where can we find her? Because this is horrible.
I thought you were gonna say like she kept it as like this big thing to be like, here's it all. Here's it back.
Yeah, I just
So
I didn't,
I've been with some spiteful baddies myself. Yeah, they suck.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's
that's
that love thing. They fall in love and you can't reciprocate, and
Yep.
so when it backfires, it's
that
nasty.
hurts my heart.
I know. I know.
Oh my god.
What's her Facebook page so we can flood her with like nasty comments?
Yeah, well, she's one of my baby's mamas, so I can't do anything because anything I do to the mama, I do to my daughter. And
True.
Well, I was gonna say, like, kudos to you for being a good dad and sticking around and raising those kids, in that situation, because that's, I'm a family guy. I got a 6-year-old daughter myself, and there's nothing more important to me in my life than my daughter, and just hands down in the world, so I love drawing and everything else I do, but everything I do in life is to support her in her life, so hearing that you were just there, not only 3 daughters, but 5 daughters in the end, kudos to you. I mean, you had up and down, life and career in this stuff, but you chose the most important things, and that's really awesome to hear. And that's just I just want to give you a shout out, as much as absolutely. So now you're back here. Now you're getting ARAKNIS going again. What was the inspiration to get back into the saddle, to bring the character back, and doing what you're doing now, which has got everybody really excited?
Yeah. Actually, it started a couple of years back, or a few years ago, and it's just about people coming out online and reaching out to me, basically telling me that that they love my book still, and I'm like, wow, after all this time, there's people that awesome. Remember.
Yeah.
And so my heart has always been about them, and I always thought those books that are out there, they are what they are, and I'm not unhappy with them. It's just that that was just more it was a lot of schooling and a lot of things that I learned from that.
Right.
And so I always thought that if I can apply everything that I learned since then to ARAKNIS now, I wonder what it would be like now, and especially with the platforms that are available, all the like back then I could draw, and I could paint okay with colors and airbrush and stuff, but I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
But now, and even back then, digital media I had no understanding of either at all. So my brother, he went to school and got a degree in computer animation, and now he works for Warner Brothers.
Cool.
Doing video game development up there, and he's been very successful at it and going really good at it for years now. That's what he's been doing all this time.
Wow.
But
good for him.
Yeah, but we talk about ARAKNIS all the time, and I always talk about redoing them the right way this time, like really tell the story the way that we were trying to do before. And all these characters that we were coming up with, and these ideas we had, and they're still like raging in my brain, and
Hell yeah.
I gotta let it out and make it happen. So that's where I'm at now, and my kids are growing up, so I'm virtually, I'm in an opportunity right now where I can just spend time doing things that I love, and still like be able to see my kids.
That's beautiful. There was a time, I'm sorry, but maybe 2008, 2010, around that era, you had put out some ARAKNIS sketches. They were, but instead of metal arms, they were more bug-like or real ARAKNIS. I love the aesthetic of the character. I love the art, but as a fan of the character ARAKNIS, I'm like, I wish they were cybernetic, because to me, as a fan, that's core to me. To you,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Very Bernie Wrightson. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I decided that I was gonna, because my brother and I talked about this a lot, and I even talked about changing ARAKNIS's name. Right?
Oh, really?
Keeping the ARAKNIS aesthetic from the '90s with the mechanical metal looking. Though back then I tried to establish that it was the construct of the spider that was in them.
Right.
And I was trying to work with writers at the time, and I'm not sure if Andy Grossberg wrote that one or somebody else, but it was just it was a difficult concept to convey back then, though it's like common talk nowadays, right? People talk about nanotechnology and like,
true.
The superhero, all of a sudden their costumes are on in an instant. Back there we had the Guyver.
Yeah.
Yes.
And see how
yes.
happened,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I was trying to like, how do I convey it? And especially how do you convey it with so many panels on a comic book page?
Right.
If I had like 2 or 3 seconds of film, that's one thing.
Sure.
But a comic book page, you only got a couple of pages that you can really invest the time to tell a story, unless, it'll be a boring comic. And,
right.
So I try to, I wonder about that. I've been wondering about that. That's what led to all the changes throughout the, throughout his persona, because I still have not shown anybody what ARAKNIS is going to look like when he's published. Nobody's
show
seen
us.
it.
We won't tell.
I'll make sure that you guys are on the exclusive list. But yeah, I've been working on it, and I want to like once I'm committed to this design, and then I want to start, showcasing them with a killer storyline that sort of tells a story that will make you feel like you're hearing or you're looking at an ARAKNIS book, because it's in there 100%. Like that ARAKNIS that I'm putting in these new pages is there. It's just, I think you'll be able to understand what's there. There's more rhyme and reason as to why it became there. And I try to tell that story because it's a fucked up story. I wanted him to be a conscious being, like, you know, to have dialogue, a lot like Venom and you know, kind of like that, where they're, you know, like he's still inside of the Venom.
Yeah.
And that Venom could just take over, right? And do whatever he wants. And then he wouldn't be Eddie anymore, right? And, you know, so, and essentially that's the same thing with ARAKNIS, where John is, and, you know, like this story arc I'm calling, I'm going to call it Pray for the Beast. And essentially, at the end of it, you realize that John, at the end of this story arc, that you're going to know that John is that prey, and he's centered right at the mouth of the beast. So ARAKNIS, in my design, ARAKNIS is on top of him, on his back, and the spider legs come out of his back because they're coming out of ARAKNIS. And ARAKNIS is infused into the body of John in every single way you can possibly imagine. And that, you know, which is, it has to be told, stretched out, you know, because I won't be able to talk like this and for you to read it. But essentially is that, imagine nanotechnology, but every single nano speck is a spider, right? And that spider, if you're able to look at it under an electron microscope, will break down into quantify, right, to that small, and still be a spider. And they're connected by a web that they're able to secrete. And this web acts like the Higgs boson from you know, from quantum physics in a way, where it acts as a field, and it's called you know, entangled field, the field of entanglement. Well, this web that the ARAKNIS secrete is essentially the same thing, that each of the spiders in this web are all a part of. They're all the same species, but they're a spider species that sort of navigate in a different universe or a different dimension that I'm going to call the universal web, or the World Wide Web, or, you know, the web in between that connects all the dimensions together by this web. And that information travels through this web instantaneous, faster than the speed of light. It's instant information, instant knowledge. So the spiders are, even though each one of them are like a part of the whole, are individuals. They have their own signature. Every single spider is its own being. And this spider, the spider that and that is inside of the human host, infused with him, is able to, like a machine or like a computer. It acts as a computer without consciousness, without knowing, without understanding. It's just, it is what it is, does what it does, and it's been doing this. And then for the first time in its entire existence, because of the happenings of John opening up a portal and all of these events take place, ARAKNIS eats a human being for the first time. And the effects are that now ARAKNIS has a new way of processing information by the way consciousness does, and where we have a vocabulary or a language, a word to put in anything that exists. And so ARAKNIS discovers the word, a language, by human consciousness, and now is able to describe, perceive, understand its whole entire existence, and it has an ability to, and so essentially it becomes conscious and aware of itself through the word, which is what we're, you know, as spiritual, as conscious beings, that's how we know everything. We don't know anything without the word, right? We don't learn anything without the word. You know, we have a word that describes every single thing there is that we know. So that's ours, an innate ability as a voice, and having the ability to speak it, the ability to hear it, the ability to see it, which, are your senses. And it turns out that we're conscious beings, and we're sort of like a tool to sort of divine vibration. We feel and measure vibration, and that's how we exist, through vibration. Like everything we see, everything we hear, everything we touch, everything we smell, all of that is vibration, and our brain interpreting that vibration. And essentially, spiders are like that too. They live in a vibration world where everything they see in their existence is based on vibration, because of the web and because of their senses, and and the amount of eyes they have, and so on and so forth. But a spider is a spider. It's not a human. So John has to contend, and so does ARAKNIS, with the nature of itself. Like, it's a spider. It's a spider that might have some similarities as a human, but it's still not a human. And this spider, it turns out that the spider has a need for sustenance. It has to be fed. All 100 trillion of them, whatever. And they all need their sustenance, and they can go into a ravenous frenzy if they don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And it might mean that they break down and hibernate, or they begin to eat themselves up. I don't know. But it's not good for John, because he'll be the first to go, which makes him the prey.
Right, yeah.
There's a conundrum.
It is. And so in order for John to exist, he has to feed the beast.
Interesting. Okay.
He has to make sure that the beast is fed. And because of his human side, naturally, ARAKNIS doesn't give a shit who he feeds on. It could be a baby, or a beautiful person, or an old lady, or Jeffrey Dahmer. It just wants to eat.
Yeah.
So because of John now, and that's where his human identity plays an important part into how things play out, because he has to make these conscious moral decisions on whether, who to feed on, who deserves it, because it turns out, because ARAKNIS is quantified, that in ancient legend, something that is akin to ARAKNIS is called a soul eater. It'll devour you all the way to your very essence, including what makes you spiritual. And so a bunch of stuff comes out of that. As the story develops, I want ARAKNIS to have the ability, not at first, but eventually it'll be like Nightcrawler from the X-Men, who's able to vanish and reappear through teleportation. What ARAKNIS is able to do is know the frequency of any dimension in existence, and if it vibrates its entire being in that same frequency, it'll shift into that dimension.
That's cool concept. I like that idea.
Cool.
And then as he does it more and more, he gets quicker at it, and
you got a lot of room to play there.
Yeah.
Like kind of a cosmic scale, so to speak. Dimensions and stuff like that.
I know. Yeah.
Are you looking to do like
allows them also to do like crossovers too. You can jump into dimensions.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to establish that in this story arc and see where it goes. And I got a few dimensions I like to explore myself.
Are you looking to do standard like 20, 22 issues? Or are you doing like the condensed format of like
a 22-page?
Yeah.
Or a graphic novel kind of thing.
Yeah. This one, this book is a 5-book series. It's got 300 pages in it that I've developed and written out.
Okay.
In telling this story and sort of like the way it's told, because it could be a dialogue between him and the spider all the time, but I don't want to preach it. I don't want to be a preacher. I want to tell this story with these circumstances that are happening, and so there's other characters that are coming, and I went into backstories with them to give them rhyme and reason too.
Right.
So the whole story just sort of plays out in multiple dimensions. I mean, in comic book fashion, because I love the comic book medium. So it's all a lot of action, a lot of, hopefully some really good artwork, because I got some dynamic scenes that I'm working on, and, and just tell an awesome comic, an awesome book. And, simplified in a way to where hopefully people can get the emotional side of it, which is, John's in trouble because he's got this thing inside of him. And the way this thing got inside of him, for instance, I changed it. And like in the original, he made a deal with them and they merged together.
Right.
But in this storyline, he comes across Arachnus in a spider form. Arachnus is a spider, and Arachnus wraps him up and eats them and consumes them.
Oh, jeez.
And then in that consumption, they have this enlightenment. They awaken. And then I have John actually emerge out of the shell of Arachnus spider, like a spider that molts its skin and becomes a new creature.
Oh yeah.
But he comes out as a human, and he's all spider inside, but he's
interesting.
Human. And so he comes out of the molt skin of Arachnus, and not a lot of memory of what happened. And then Arachnus begins to connect to his consciousness by literally having to regurgitate a lot of what he ate already. And it turns out that that's an ability that Arachnus can mimic and mask and make out of its webbing anything, anything, like even a cell or a blood cell or a memory cell. It can just remake it out of its webbing. And
that's
so,
deep.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say that's a really it's a
Arachnus
cool concept.
Costume, the whole costume is the web, right? The nest that came out and it covers him, and I wanted to give it, a metallic look, like, because I wanted to be able to be like Alien's Predator and camouflage itself into its background. So I wanted to give it this real reflective metallic look all over his skin, which is why I made the legs metal and or why I decided to do that, because the legs were made of metal.
Yeah.
And I had these metal legs. When I first did Arachnus in the first book, the metal legs was an armor to cover the spider that was on it, under it, because I was going to create a whole race of these spider beings called the Tiro Khan, and they had their own technology, and they had their own armor, and I did that a lot. Like I made dragons that wore armor because I don't know, I like that.
Just as cool. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Like the cybernetic stuff. I mean, I do the same thing to this day. Like with my comic, I just like throwing cybernetic stuff on characters. It's just, why not? It's awesome.
Yeah, all my guys are armors.
Yeah. I thought it'd be cool to like establish a monster character with Arachnus, and then maybe pit him against Mecha Arachnus, who is
there you go.
Like an AI born like quantum AI born creature that that becomes a nemesis. And he would be a badass. He probably really freak Arachnus out. But
Sheldon,
I wanted Arachnus to be like au natural as all naturalness can be. Like everything's organic and not necessarily technological, but it can compare and compete with technology in its creation.
Sheldon Martin said, can he make clones with his webbing?
Good question. In fact, he's able to make he can make an army, and he can take over the entire earth, kind of thing.
Oh shit!
Or make the earth his nest. And
that's a crazy concept.
Yeah, and maybe not Arachnus itself, but just the being that is Arachnus.
Right.
Because he comes from, he's like, even though he's quantitative and could be considered a universe all unto itself in some ways, he's still that being that's not much bigger than a human. So he's able to, it's like, I think the size that he is what he can't like grow giant, and he can't like grow giant spiders, but his arm will drop off and it'll be a nice, small dog-like spider that you'll have to deal with.
Interesting.
Oh, cool. Okay.
John says, this is so much deeper than I thought. What's cool about stories that you told a long time ago, and then when you were retooling, is taking a concept that you had that, you know, you saw there's room for a lot of growth, right? And then going back into that concept and being like, what can I do to make this better, deeper, you know, more entertaining, longer story, that kind of stuff, and then just having it all come together. I did the same thing with Reaper Destroyer. In 2007, I put out a book, just a preview book, and the concept for that book back then was so much more simple than what it was now, because I didn't really know how to write. It was just a very basic concept, you know. And when I was retooling it, I wanted to make it
reaped and destroyed.
Yeah, you reaped and destroyed. Yeah. But I wanted to make it deeper and have more substance and like all these different things. And like it took 2 years for me to put it into it, but it sounds like exactly what you did. You know, you're coming out now with this great deep story. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a creative journey. I think that we all each go on this creative journey, and it sort of goes where your creativity takes you, and and you, and in essence, you know, and this is philosophical belief, and the reason for the context of ARAKNIS with the dimensional travel is that I think that's what we do. We make choices that create worlds, and we do that all the time, like instantaneous. And, you know, like you choose to go left, and then there's a world that you went right in, and it's a whole universe on a whole stream of things.
Right. Yeah.
And it sort of reverberates countless, and it goes on, which is why I think that God might be the entity that knows everything and knows you, and he may not know the choices you make because it could be in any dimension, and those dimensions connect with other dimensions that sort of be this line of all these choices. And it turns out that all of these choices that not only I'm talking about making on my own accord, because easily each one of us can say the truth that every single choice you ever made in your entire existence has brought you to where you're at right here in this moment.
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the time. You know, people say, well, I don't believe in free will. I'm like, there's the evidence of it. Nobody else forced you to come here. You know, made you do this. This is your choices. So, and our choices have power. They have meaning. They sort of dictate your reality, and your experiences are based on your choices. And constantly with choices, you know, what I've learned, of course, is there's consequence all the time, no matter good choice, bad choice, good consequences, bad consequences. And we live in the now is in the consequence of choices that we made yesterday or a few moments ago. and the choices we make will affect, you know, the next moment, the next day, whatever, the future. And I mean, that's power in that. That's like, you know, that's what humans are. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And we make these choices based off of what we perceive, what we understand, what we know, what we vibrate with, you know. And it turns out that we live in this world that I call the shadow world, or the shadow zone, because the shadow is a word that describes light and darkness existing in the same space, right? That's the shadow, where light and darkness is there at the same time. And here we are, human beings, in the midst of this light and darkness. We can see the light, we can see the darkness. We know there's darkness, but we understand what's in the light. We don't understand what's in the darkness. You know, so we make choices based on that. And so it really depends on, you know, what kind of information you receive from the get-go as soon as you're born into this world. What kind of experiences are coming at you? You know, what are you going to learn? What are you going to know? What's going to make you who you are today, and what's going to make you who you are, you know, like 5 years from now or so. And it's all part of the experience, all part of the journey.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. We got Greg here on Facebook says, what are his weaknesses? Talking about ARAKNIS.
Fire, obviously, and sorcery and devil worshiping, laser blast that comes out of, because he goes up against demons. I put him up against demons and people that exist in a dark universe, dark dimensions. Right. And they come from a low vibrating place, but it's instantaneous for them. So Cryptus, I'm bringing Cryptus into the scene with the Storm Legion and the Wraith Rats, which are these demonic, hell-like, vicious, dog-like demons that sort of they're like the front lines of the army, and they just rip and rend and destroy. They're vicious, and they're all being commanded by a witch that I call Helsa, that used to be Hell-X. And Hell-X has got her own story, or Helsa, because I added a at the end of her name because, my brother and I talked about it, and we thought that she was too unbelievable with a name like Helix, And
I do like Helsa. That's got a good ring to it.
Yeah, well, I think it works too because she's possessing John's wife, Serena, right? So she has John's wife hostage, and it's not that she's being possessed; is that she's puppeted by Helsa, and Helsa is a being, not a demon or a spirit. Helsa is a race of beings that are called the necrogen, but they're like the gen, but they deal in death and necromancy and sorcery. And witchcraft. And so Helsa is like a badass sorceress, evil witch, evil creature that chooses to be that way, by the way, because she's got free will. But she's already so far down the line, but she's sort of opening up to consciousness in her own way by possessing the human body. She's sort of looking at consciousness, not like the way a man does, but like the way a female energy does, and it's more visceral for her, more sexualized because it's
jump
physical,
into conclusions,
emotional. Yeah. Yeah. And basically, I have a lot of exes, right? All from hell. And so I created Hell X to be like all of a
there you go.
There you go.
All my yeah. So she's twisted and ruthless, and I have a whole story arc because I'm gonna have her. I want to publish her title Helix or Helsa, and it's her story about why she is that way and how to contend. And but in this case, she's she's still going after doing Cryptus. He's the general of the army, the Storm Legion that he's amassing to destroy. And because of John's portal, he was able to capture that device to open up a hole between our worlds, which is the catapult of why all of this is going on in the first place, because of that one invention of that allow sound vibration and resonant frequency dialed at a specific frequency will open a door to that world. And,
that sounds awesome. You got two guys right here that are going to promote the shit out of this book.
Well, thank you.
Well, especially when you get ready to launch and do all that kind of stuff and whatever platform medium, definitely come back on the show, and we'll definitely dive more into stuff when you have things to show off, and really dive into more of the story. And we'll absolutely help promote it. And I saw the Don in the chat. We got John Epple in the chat. Tank Fair. You got a ton of people in the chat that will do the same thing. Do the same thing to help get this thing
I love their
promoted.
work, and they're really all good guys. And Dolan's been helping me out. We're doing an initial sneak preview that he wrote the script for.
Nice.
We plotted it out, and then Andrew Mangum is going to he's going to try.
Andrew's good guy.
He's a really good guy. I like him. He's a good guy, and we're going to see how it works out with the inks. He's got a different style from my brother, and he recently inked one, a kind of a crossover drawing that I did of Dolan's characters, Recluse and Jenny the werewolf.
Nice.
Okay.
But yeah, it came out good. Gene, who colored Arachnus in the first place, is coming back to color
Nice.
story.
Oh,
I always
wow.
thought the colors were really good in
Top
the original
notch.
series. Yeah,
Yeah,
like that, that's one of
Yeah.
that's one of the things about the '90s. Some of the '90s independent books that fell short were in the coloring department. You know,
Mhm.
and I never thought that with Arachnus. I thought Arachnus had top notch, like Sean said, professional level colors, which is why I always said. And this is a question. This is gonna be the last question because we got to jump here to end the show. But being that the level of professionalism that book looked like when you had art, colors, and all that kind of stuff, did you ever try pitching it to Image? Did that ever cross the mind, or trying to get picked up by Image or any other, or you know
No.
how'd that go?
No, never did. Never thought about it. You know, there was this thing going around at the time. It seemed like a slogan, like a rebel cry that was independent and stand this way. And I kind of like it. I like that idea because I like to do things myself. I don't want to depend on other people to do things that I could be doing. And so I'm going to publish Arachnus under my own publishing company that I'm going to call Mystic Mushroom Comics. Right?
Nice. Oh yeah.
And and so I got a bunch of ideas for books that I'm gonna promote after I get Arachnus. Just I don't know. He's like my albatross. Once I get him back and going, and he's on the shelf, I feel like that's gonna give me the. It's like I don't know, a gatekeeper or something. Now I can just open the gate and go after these other stories, and these other stories are more meaningful to me and my brother. One of them is a storyline called Shadow Walkers that I'm really excited about putting that out more. So I introduced it in the new Arachnus storyline, and along with a couple of other characters that I really like that we're gonna bring back. Locomotive is one of them. I got a whole new design for them, and the Comorian warriors that have their own sort of knighthood that I wanted to fashion off of the concept of lions and lions' pride. And, you know, so there's a lot of stuff like that. And some other books that are novelty, off the wall, like pop out books that tell a story with the 3D images inside of it.
Oh, cool.
My brother and I are going to start doing him specifically, but he's working on a team where we're going to do animated shorts of Arachnus on motion
Oh no
comics.
shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, and by the way, I just saw a few images that my brother sent me a few days ago because he's a digital artist and he's a digital sculptor, and he's fantastic at what he does. He's been doing it for years. So he did a sculpture of Arachnus that that we're going to be putting out soon. But more importantly, I'm going to utilize as one of the incentives in a Kickstarter campaign
nice.
So and that statue it looks badass. It's one you can just 3D print, you know, so it'll be easy. Either get a 3D printed one or you just 3D print it yourself if you have one.
Nice. But before we close up shop on tonight,
go ahead.
I want to tell a little story time with Shawnee that I like to tell it. Back in like 96, there was a convention in Manhattan that my father, my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law's friend went to. We went to the convention. It wasn't at the place it was supposed to be at. So we had to like scavenger hunt to go to this church. And I thought it was the Limelight Church.
Yeah.
I don't think it was. But anyway,
I don't remember, but it was like in
get there.
Basement or something.
Yeah, it was in the basement. And like it's funny because like my friend Mark Polton and Dex, they were there, but I didn't know them then, you know, like how we got cross paths. But Chaos Comics was the headliner there, Event Comics, and it was the first time I got to see Arachnus in paper. So I was able to get the first 3 issues.
Wow.
And like that, like meeting you guys, and again, like this book is so monumentally important to me as a young creator. To now, like talking to you now, like it's just not just an honor, but like the fond memory of that convention, just one of those you know, just such a great time in my life, like member berries, you know. It's just like
yeah.
it was such a great time coming home, reading the book on the car, like getting stuck on the George Washington Bridge with traffic and shit, and just trying to learn how to draw. You know,
really,
like
that was a good convention too. It was such a good time, and it was
yeah.
snowing. The windshield factor was freezing.
It was cold as fuck.
Yeah, we were all from California, so that was quite a shock for us. But hell yeah, that was a good time. And how old were you at the time?
I was probably 96, probably like I just turned 15,
14,
maybe.
15, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like that was the perfect age where I was creating my own characters, and you know, I'm gonna be an image partner one day, and like you and your brother have so much to do. Like I can speak for Joe on this, on like where we're at now, and how we go upon creating our stories and our characters. So like again, like this has been nothing but an honor to chit the chat with you.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been an honor for me. I like thanks for giving me the platform to just talk about all of this stuff.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate it.
And we'll do it again. Like I said, when you get some stuff going, we'll definitely have you back on. We definitely want to help in any way we can. Like I said, so with a bunch of guys in the chat, and I'm sure you got a lot of excitement with bringing this book back. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people reaching out to give you platforms to talk about it. And
there is one thing we've been talking about it, and I think maybe talking about more seriously lately. Well, we're thinking of putting a compilation together with all the existing books.
You should.
Definitely. You think that'd be a good idea?
I think it would be a great idea.
Yeah. Catch people up, get new readers, people that weren't able to get the old stuff, you know, like because people are scanning the comics direct, like Rob Liefeld, E.T. Van Sciver, Billy Tucci, and they're able with Photoshop and today's technology, like bring it back to what it was, but maybe enhance a bit more. And you know, like you already got the material. You know, it might be costly, but like it's a great way to get people like up to date or to catch up or like open their eyes to who ARAKNIS is, was, and will be for the future.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea to do maybe before the new book, you know,
get
a compilation of all the old books together, do some heavy advertisement, get that out there, and then
if we
use
do
that all to
gonna
ramp up for the new.
We're going to shoot for June for
really?
Our campaign in June to see if we can, you know, get any interest.
Well, don't just sell on Kickstarters, Indiegogo, Fund My Comic, and others. Like get all the platforms you can, because like
can you do them all at the same time, or
you can if you want. I would stagger it. You know,
maybe,
I would stagger them, and I would have something exclusive for every single platform, so that people think they're getting some or get something special. So it's not just the same thing. But you know, do Kickstarter when that's done. Do an Indiegogo when that's done. Do a Fund My Comic.
Okay.
You know, it just spread it out as much as you can over those platforms, and just definitely do that heavy advertising as much as you can. I mean, like doing shows like this. I mean, we're a small show, but you know,
but we're a great show.
But we're a great show, but we're a small show. But get on as many shows as you can, and just we'll try to put in a good word too, as far as like trying to grab other shows in this scene. To get on and just get your stuff out there, because the look of the book was sell. You know, that's the thing with the crowdfunding, the YouTube stuff or whatever. The look is going to sell. You just got to get it in front of people, because obviously we're going to come out and get it because we loved it as a kid. But like the newer potential readers and stuff are going to see the artwork, they're going to see the concept, and they're going to want to jump on board. So if you're getting on like Michael Bancroft's show, you know, definitely reach out to him. He's got a big platform to go on and talk about, you know, just do that kind of stuff. And people are going to come out and get this, because this book is top notch. You know, your art's great. The concept's awesome.
I do have an idea also, that because I told you before that that last series ended with the first issue.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, for this book, did I finish off that second issue and since finish off that story arc and make that whole thing complete with a book.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea either.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
Because I was going to ask you earlier, and we got to wrap up because my wife keeps saying, she's like, I'm ready to make dinner. But I was going to ask if you're going to reboot or just continue, you know. But that's if you're doing both, where you're kind of like retooling everything, but you want to wrap up the last story arc and stuff. That's good ideas, you know, like whatever you want to do. I say definitely.
I appreciate it. Absolutely. And yeah, thanks for letting me ask these questions and talk to you guys about it. And yeah, well, you're doing great. You guys do a great job at what you do, and
thank you.
Thank you very much.
keep on going on because you are really good.
Trying.
We definitely are. We're trying to chase a dream, trying to get, all the, like you inspired us, bunch of people inspired you. That's what we're trying to do. And we're finally getting to live our dream. Speaking of which, before we wrap up, I know Sean, he's got some new stuff he's going to be dropping on the campaign. We got to retool the date. We'll get that to you. But give him an update real quick before we get out of here, Sean.
Things halted for a bit. Was waiting for some pages. I just got a bunch in from Dan. They look phenomenal.
They look amazing.
This Saturday, we were supposed to do the weekend special of updating the campaign, this and that. We're going to push it down a couple of weeks. We're going to reboot it. Hopefully, if Michael's free when we figure out, he's more than welcome to come on. Yeah, man, we're just going to get this thing rolling even better, even more kick-ass.
Wow.
And
that looks amazing. That's great work.
Thank you. I enjoy most of this. Yeah. But I'll take credit because it's my character. But yeah, look, if you haven't bought the book yet, if you like ancient mythological lore, like from Mayan and Aztec lore, find out why the 9 Lords of the Night came upon us and why I thought that Anunnaki created these Type 1 armors as safeguards to protect us against false gods and beyond. You know my spiel. I got 6 pages in. I'm going to get more in so we're looking sometime in May. So May is going to be huge for us. It's not going to be just our 5-year anniversary of and stuff. We're going to be retooling the Type 1 campaign. We're coming up on our 250th anniversary episode. So that's huge.
Oh, yeah.
May's big for Joey and I. Yeah. Wow. So this is Joe's cover right now. Joe drew this, inked by Marlo Acquiza, colored by legendary colors Dan Kemp.
Yes,
this
sir.
is a look in the future of where Strees and the Type 1 armor will be going down the road. This is phenomenal. We're going to be doing gearing up. We're going to go on some other campaigns, some other pages as well to do. But yeah, one's. Man, I love my cover. Amazing. Thank you. He killed it. Can we fluff my cover up? Yeah. This is great. So I drew this. Dan Kemp colored this. You got to represent Jersey in the background. You got some little Mayan Aztec lore just to show it off. But I am so blessed to have the friends I have that are as talented as they have to donate awesome covers. From Phil McNulty, Chris Graves, that Ride and Pain Streets cover is beyond. So if you haven't yet and you're hesitant about pulling the trigger, this book is definitely going to be up your alley. If you like books like Reaper Destroyer or ARAKNIS, this is a fun-loving book like that. So don't be a bum. Back Type 1 and let's go.
Let's go. I love it. Good promotion. I like it. Answer one question before we got it. Roaring Steel Media says, good evening, Joe. Will Reaper Destroyer be available to buy on the web? I missed the IGG campaign. I'm planning on doing a Kickstarter. I just got to figure out exactly when to do it. Sometime before Reaper Destroyer 2 launches, I'm going to do a Kickstarter version of the book. But that'll probably be the only way you can get it until I get extra copies on a website once I actually get that launch. So just follow me on X. I'm primarily over on X, but I am on Facebook and Instagram as well. But follow me there for updates. Follow the YouTube channel. Subscribe it. And we'll bring up any updates we have about the campaign, the Kickstarter, and definitely getting into the second issue as we get going here. Probably sometime in July with the second issue. Pizza's in the house. It was great to see you, brother.
Pizza? Good to see you.
Hey, guys,
if you want to hit me up, I got NFTs of his stuff, so don't worry about it. I got you.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Michael, this has been a hell of a fun conversation.
Yes,
we can't wait to get you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. You all have a good night.
You as well. Chat.
Hope to speak with you again.
Absolutely. Remember, Sunday night, Ronan Joe Show, 10 p.m. I'll be on. We'll be back here on Monday at 9 p.m. for the Spawn review. And then back here next week, we have Dan Chichester, I believe, coming on.
Yep.
And we're going to look at some of his new stuff and talk some Daredevil Fall from Grace. So
great story. What are we looking at for Spawn? Because I wasn't on this past weekend.
Medieval Spawn 1 came out today.
Okay.
We're going to check that out. Yep.
Okay.
So
cool.
Be there, everybody. All right. As I say all the time to the chat, be good to each other. Take care of one another. And as always, picture me naked. Talk to y'all later. Peace.